Let me pull up this question. So we have a triangle. They've given us a sketch, which is always nice. Part A, it says determine the slope of BC. How do you find the slope between 2 points? It's pretty simple, yeah, just do rise over run. Or you can also use the other formula that we looked at. Oh, but I think this one's easier. So B to C, it's gonna be rise, right? So it looks like it's going 3 units up from -1 to, sorry, -2 to 1 is 3 units. And what's the run from B to C? From B, 6. So the slope is gonna be 1/2 or 3/6 from B to C. Pretty straightforward. 1/2. Part B, determine the slope of AD. Now notice we don't know what AD is. We don't know what point D is. We do know point A, but we don't know what point D is. How could we find the slope? Any ideas? How are they related, AD and BC? They are perpendicular to each other, yeah? If two lines are perpendicular, how are their slopes related?
One of the slopes is the negative reciprocal.
Okay, so what's the negative reciprocal of 1/2?
-2/1.
Yeah, -2/1 or just -2. Part C, determine the equation of the line that contains AD. All right, so we know the slope of AD is -2, so y equals mx plus b. What point do we plug as y and x to find the equation of AD? Remember, we don't have point D.
So you plug in A.
Yeah, you can only plug in A. So 4 is equals to -2 times -1 plus b. B is gonna be 4 minus 2, b is gonna be 2. Therefore, the equation is y equals -2x plus 2, okay? You can always verify this. We were looking for B, right? The y-intercept. You can also look in the diagram, actually, you didn't need point A. But again, sometimes they trick you, like this point could be 2.1 and 2.2, but it appears to be 2, so this is good. This is in the bag. Let's look at question 2. Determine the equation of a line that contains the point BC. BC, you already know the slope is 1/2. What do we plug as x and y to find the equation of BC?
You pick a point.
Yeah, you can either put B or you can put C because we know both of them. I'm just gonna put C because it's positive. So 1 is equals to 1/2 times 5 plus B. So B is gonna be 1 minus 5/2. Yeah. What's 1 minus 5/2? So if you take the common denominator, you'll end up with this. So it's -3/2, which is the equation of BC. All right, so we have the equation of BC. We have the equation of AD. Look at question 3. It's asking you to find the coordinate of point D. Which we don't know, right? But we do know the two lines. How could we find what point D is? That's the POI. That point D is the point of intersection between AD and BC, right? We already have both of those equations from 1C and 2. How do you find the point of intersection between two lines?
You set the two equations equal to each other.
Yeah, exactly. So look at this. This is for question 3. You're just going to set the first y is equals to the second y like this. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then group up like terms. -2 minus 1 over 2 is negative 2.5, which is negative 5 over 2. And negative 3 over 2 minus 2 is negative 5 over 2 as well. Right? So that means x appears to be 1, but that's not what it looks like on the diagram. So let me just double check this. Minus 1 over 2. That's good. Negative 3 divided by 2 minus 2, which is negative 7 over 2. Yeah, that was a mistake here. This is supposed to be negative 7 over 2. That means this divided by negative 5 over 2 is going to be our x value, which is 7 over 5. See, sometimes it helps drawing the diagram out because I got x as 1, but that does not look like 1. It's a little bit more than 1. So that's our x value of d, right? To find the y value of d, you can plug in this in either one of those equations because both of these go through that line. So to find the y value, I'm just going to plug it in here. -2 times 7 over 5 plus 2. That is -4 over 5. Does that make sense? Yes, it does. -4 over 5. So there you go. That's point D. Point D is 7 over 5 on the x and -4 over 5 on the y. And you can't tell that from the diagram. You have to do it the way we did it, right? Because these numbers are very close to 1 and -1 and such. Part 4, determine the lengths of BC and AD. Okay. Remember how to find this. BC is going to be, the length of BC is going to be the hypotenuse of this triangle. The run here was 6, the rise here was 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
That means, how do you find the hypotenuse if the lengths are 6 and 3? You just take the Pythagorean. 36 plus 9, it's going to be root 45. That's BC, yeah? To do AD, I'm going to use a formula because these numbers are weird. And this is the formula. It's the same thing. Squared. Again, this is just the Pythagoras theorem. So y2, y1, I'm going to call this x1, y1. I'm going to call this x2, y2. So y2, which is -4 over 5, minus y1, which is 4, squared, plus x2 is 7 over 5, and x1 is 1 squared, which becomes a plus. Like that, I'm just going to plug this in a calculator. That's 4 squared plus 7 divided by 5 plus 1 squared. The square root of this gives me 5.37, and square root of 45 is somewhere between 6 and 7. It's 6.708. So, all right, so we know BC, this length here is 6.7, and we know AD, that length is 5.37. Last question here, 5. Determine the area of this triangle. Any ideas?
You just do 6.7 times 5.37 over 2.
Yeah, that's it, right? That's it. Any questions on this?
No.
Just remember that they're going to try and trick you. Sometimes they're not going to give you all the information. Things to know are that if the lines are parallel, right? If they give you this slope, you don't know what these points are. Their slopes are going to be equal if they're parallel. Okay, slopes are going to be equal. If the lines are perpendicular, the slopes are going to be the negative reciprocal. You just flip it, put a negative sign, or switch the sign. before we do this, let's do a question up here maybe. That's just that. All right, here. So if you have three different median lines, right? Median means it goes from a vertex to the midpoint of the other side. Like this is a median line. This is a median line, and that is also a median line, yeah? You have three different median lines. If they meet, they're gonna meet somewhere. That point is called the centroid, okay? That point is called the centroid. Next thing, you have something called perpendicular bisectors. Now, what's the difference between a median and a perpendicular bisector? We're going to do some questions on this. I just want you to know that these things exist. So median goes from here to the midpoint, okay? It goes from a vertex to the midpoint. But a perpendicular bisector, it just cuts it in half, okay? It cuts it in half at 90 degrees. So this one cuts it in half at 90 degrees. This one cuts it in half at any degree. This doesn't have to be 90 for a median. But for a perpendicular bisector, it has to cut it in half. First condition, and the second condition is 90 degree. This one cuts it in half only from the vertex. From the vertex, and then the last thing is called the altitude, okay? The altitude. See this altitude? They meet at something called the orthocentre. It doesn't have to cut it in half, okay? It does not have to cut it in half. It has to come from the vertex, and it has to be 90 degrees. Okay, so those are the three possibilities. Because the next question asked us for one of these, that's why. Let me see if there's any good questions here. Not really, so I'm just gonna go down here. Which one was I gonna do? This one. I'm just gonna keep that on the side, okay? Maybe I'm gonna put this a little bit smaller. This is just gonna be our cheat sheet, but you're gonna know there's only three things. Let's look at this question. Determine the equation of the median from vertex A. Again, anytime you see a question like this, just make sure you have a rough estimate of what's going on, like a rough sketch. -3, 2 is somewhere here. I'm gonna call that -3, 2. B, -5, -6 would be somewhere down here. And C, 5, 0 is there. Okay, just have a rough idea. This looks like a right angle triangle, but we don't know that for sure. We're gonna prove it. So there you go, that's our sketch. Part A, determine the equation of the median, yeah, from vertex A. So we're looking for this line here. Remember, to find the median, it goes from one of the vertices to the midpoint of the other side. Okay, so look at this, part A. We're looking for this median, yeah? Goes from this point to this point, and this point is the median. Oh, sorry, it's the midpoint. Look at this. What's the midpoint between -5 and +5 on the x?
0.
0. What's the midpoint between -6 and 0 on the y?
-3.
-3. So there you go. See, we have two different points. We just need to find the equation of a line containing these points. Very simple. Step 1, find the slope. Okay. So we're going from 2 to -3. The slope is 5. And on the other side, we're going from -3 to 0. So what's our run? Our run, again, the sketch is awful, but at this point should have been here. -3 to 0, our run is going to be 3, okay? Now, is this slope positive or negative?
Negative.
Yeah, it's negative, so there you go, that's our slope. Therefore, the median line is gonna be this, x plus b. To find the b value, I'm gonna plug a, because the -3 should cancel out nicely. So -5/3 times -3 plus b This becomes positive 5 plus b equals 2. B is negative 3. And therefore, we have the answer. B is negative 3. So the final answer is going to be negative 5 over 3x minus 3. There you go. That's the median. Part B is going to be something different. It says, determine the equation of the altitude from vertex A. This one's going to be a little bit tricky. Altitude, I can remember this is what an altitude is. It comes from one of the vertices, okay? It's basically the height of the triangle, that's what it is. Goes down like this and intersects it at some point. This doesn't have to be the median, okay? This doesn't have to be the midpoint. Can meet it at it anywhere, but it needs to be 90 degrees. It's asking us to find the equation of this line. To find the equation of this line, you need two things. You need 2 points. We already have point A, but we don't have this point, okay? We don't have this point, and this has something to do with the question that we did earlier about finding D. Okay, so how do you answer this question? It's a little bit tricky, but step 1, you're gonna find the slope of this line, okay? Actually, there's no way to find the slope of this line, but there is a way to find the slope of this line, because we don't know where D is right now. We don't know where this is, but we do know BC. So step 1, we're gonna find the slope between B and C. So this is 6b. Look at this. Slope between B and C. Rise is gonna be 6 units. Run is gonna be 10 units. So the slope is 3 over 5. How are the slopes of BC and AD related?
The lines are perpendicular.
The lines are perpendicular. That means the slope of AD is going to be, what's a negative reciprocal of 3 over 5?
Negative 5 over 3.
Negative 5 over 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means the equation of the line BC, okay, I'm just going to call this y1 or whatever. It's going to be 3 over 5x plus b. I'm just going to plug in a point. Which one would be easy? I'm going to plug in the point C. So y is 0, 3 over 5 times negative 5 plus b. Therefore, that equation is negative 3. So that's our b value, negative 3. So this is the equation of the line BC. Similarly, we're going to find the equation of line AD. We know the slope is negative 5 over 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to find the B value. We have no idea what D is, so we must plug A in here. So AY becomes 2, negative 5 over 3 times negative 3 plus B. This will be positive 5 plus B equals 2. B is minus 3, okay? B is minus 3. So there you go. You have these two things. How do you find the POI between 2 points? The point of intersection. You just set them equals to each other, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So if we do this one's gonna look a little bit weird. This and this cancels out, okay? So I'm gonna move plus 3 over 5x plus 5 over 3x is equals to negative 3 plus 3 is gonna become a 0. You can find the LCD here. If you do the whole thing, x is gonna be 0, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Plug this back in, y is gonna be negative 3. So what did we just find? We found what point D is. Okay? We found what
Mm-hmm.
point D is. Turns out it's the same thing as the midpoint. That was point D. The midpoint is also the altitude. This line here is also the altitude. We already have the equation of this going from here to here. We want, for part B, we want the equation from A to D. Turns out that point there, the midpoint is D. Therefore, both of these are going to have the same answers. Y is equals to negative 5 over 3x minus 3. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's the altitude. So altitude goes from one of the vertices to 90 degree. It doesn't have to be in the middle. Look at part C. Determine the equation of the perpendicular bisector of BC. Now, what's a perpendicular bisector? Again, to recap, this is the median. Goes from the vertex to the midpoint. This is the altitude. Goes from the vertex to somewhere that's 90 degrees. This is altitude. This is the median. And a perpendicular bisector is something, let's say this is BC, yeah? Cuts it in half right there. It cuts it in half. It's a line that goes up somewhere here. But this is 90 degrees. So it has a median component and it has a 90-degree component. That's your perpendicular bisector. So using this information, we should be able to find the perpendicular bisector of BC. The midpoint is 0, 3, right? And we found in part B that this point here, the perpendicular, where it's perpendicular, where the midpoint is perpendicular, is 0, 3. So the answer here, every single thing, they're all the same. So if you draw this triangle out, this is your midpoint, yeah? It's also the perpendicular bisector, and it cuts it in half like that. If it does it at one point, it must do it at the other point as well. It must do it at the other point as well. See, it's a triangle. It's a triangle that's completely symmetrical. What is this type of triangle called?
Equilateral.
Yeah, equilateral triangle. Okay, I'm gonna keep that thing there. Let's look at another question. What's an altitude of a triangle? It's the height, yeah? It's the height. Doesn't have to be midpoint, but has to come from the vertex and has to be 90 degrees. Sometimes what happens is if you draw it well, I'm not trying to attempt it here, you can get some of the heights and whatnot. So 2 and 8. So this is 2. And I'm just going to draw this to scale. Last time we didn't. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's your point D. Point E is 6. 1, 4, 5, 6, and 2. That's your point E. And then finally point F is -3 and 2. So up here. So that is your point F. It's going to join them, see what it looks like. Doesn't really look like anything right now. Definitely not a 90 degree. This is not a right angle triangle, yeah? Could be isosceles though, or we'll see. It says find the point of the orthocentre. Now, there's 3 different things. Where medians intersect, that's called the centroid. Okay, 3 medians intersect. Where 3 circumcentres intersect, it's gonna be called, where 3 perpendicular bisectors, that's called the circumcentre. And where 3 altitudes intersect, it's called the orthocentre. So this thing is something that you're gonna have to know because they're not gonna give this to you on your tests and whatnot. So this is something you need to memorize. So it's not too difficult once you're used to the words. Orthocentre it says, so we need to find where 3 altitudes intersect. Yeah. Super annoying question. So how do you begin? Remember, altitude is a line that brings you from one of the vertices down here to not at 90 degrees. Okay. We need to find this point right here where all 3 altitude. Again, this is a rough sketch. Looks like the answer is 2 and what is this? 2, 4, 5. Looks like the answer is 2 and 5. Can use this later as a gauge to see if how close we were. And the other altitude is gonna go from like here to this way 90 degrees. Okay, let's focus on the first altitude, D, and we can call this A. To find this equation, okay, we need to find what point A is. How do we find what point A is? Any ideas? I'll give you a hint. Look at the line FE. What do you think the slope is there? What's the rise for FE? What's the slope of FE? It's just a horizontal line.
It's 0.
Yeah, it's 0. So the slope of line FE is 0. What's going to be the slope of DA? That's a tricky thing. So that means DA is vertical, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
What's the slope of a vertical line? I'll give you a hint, it doesn't exist. Okay, it's infinite. Because if you flip it, look at this, if you take the negative reciprocal of this, you're going to be dividing by a 0. This is technically not true, but you'll get something like this. What does that mean for us? That means you can't write dA in terms of y equals mx plus b. The equation of line dA, okay, is going to be in the form of x equals 2. Throughout this line, the x value is always going to be 2, okay? That
Mm-hmm.
means we're looking at A. The point A is going to be 2, 2. Point A is going to be 2, 2. We have that. Now, let's leave it at that. Let's look at the next line. We can call this B. We can call this C. The slope of D to E is -6/4. It's -3/2. What's the slope from B to E? No, it wouldn't be that. Wait a second. I found the slope of this. No, it should be this line, sorry, this line. Because D to E is perpendicular to this line, FFC, not EB. So the slope of the line D to E is -3/2. What's going to be the slope of the line FC?
2/3.
2/3, right? So next, we're going to find two equations. We're going to set them equal to one another to get what point C is. So this one's going to be y equals -3/2x plus b, right? This is going to be D to E. I'm just going to plug the point D in there, which is going to be 8 equals -3/2 times 2 plus b. B is going to be 11, okay? So that's going to be the equation of the line D to E plus 11. Now we're going to do the same thing for this. Y equals 2/3x plus b. This is the line that goes from F to C, the perpendicular line. We don't know what C is. That's what we're trying to find. It looks like it's 4, 6 or whatever, but I'm going to plug F in there to find what that is. So F is going to be the Y value is 2. The X value is 3. You can only plug F in there because we don't know what B is. So you do this, B is going to be 4. So plus 4, that's the equation of this line. Next, we're trying to find what point C is, right? We can just make them equals to each other like that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But actually, we don't need to find point C, but if you wanted to, you could. We're trying to find what this point here is. To find what point that is, right, we need to find the equation of this line, which we just did. This is the equation of FC. We're going to make that equals to the equation of this line, EB. Next, we're going to find the slope of FD. Again, very simple. It's going to be 6 on the Y, and on the X, it's going to be 5. If the slope of the line FD is 6/5, what's the slope of the line BE, which is perpendicular to FD? You see BE?
It's -5/6.
-5/6. Just like we did before, we're going to come up with an equation for BE. We can skip FD. If you want to find FD, that means we're looking for point B, but we're not looking for point B because this question says find the orthocenter. So we're simply looking for this equation here. To find the equation of that line, right, BE is going to be y equals negative 5 over 6x plus B. We don't know what point B is, so we must plug E in there to find our y-intercept. It's going to be 2 equals negative 5 over 6 times 6 plus B. B is going to be 7, okay? So therefore, the equation of the line BE is this. Now, we don't need anything else. To find where they intersect, you just need these two lines. The line from FC, which is this way, right? That's the altitude line. And then the line from BE going this way. We're going to make them equals to each other to find what the orthocenter is right there, orthocenter. So 2 over 3x, just make them equals to each other. Plus 4 is equals to negative 5 over 6x plus 7. I'm going to plug this in a calculator. Look at this. 2 over 3x plus 5 over 6x is equals to 3. So what's 2 divided by 3 plus 5 divided by 6? We're just going to do 3 divided by that number. Turns out x is 2. Okay, remember this was our prediction earlier. And then we're going to plug this back into either one of those equations. I'm going to plug it back here to find what the y value is. Negative 5 times 2 divided by 6 plus 7. Okay, so that point was a little bit off. That point there is 5.33. So there you go. That's going to be the orthocenter. That's where the three altitudes meet. Okay, it's a pretty tricky question, but it just has to do with finding the slopes, finding the line using two different points, and then flipping them to find the points of intersection. That kind of makes sense? So see, this one you'd have to do it by hand, because if you just said that's 2, 5, you'd be wrong, because it turns out it's 5.33. That is the orthocenter. All three of them have their uses, by the way: circumcenter, centroid, orthocenter. Look at circumcenter. It has a very unique use. I'll give you a hint, okay? Where do you think circumcenter is being used? Look at this distance. I should use a different color. Look at this distance here. Look at this distance here. And look at this distance here. How do you think they're related?
They're the same.
They're the same, okay? The other two that don't have that property, this point is way closer to B than it is to A and C. This point is way closer to this than it is to this and this. Circumcenter is equidistant from all 3 points, okay? So let's do a question. I'm sure there's a question on this. They're not gonna say find the circumcenter, okay? They won't say that, but you have to sometimes read between the lines. What am I talking about? This question right here. Okay. University has 3 residences, which are located at these certain points. They want to build a tennis court at equal distance from all 3 residences. Determine the coordinates of the tennis court. See that? So what are they asking us? Which one? Centroid, circumcenter, or orthocenter? We need it to be equidistant. We just talked about it. It's going to be the circumcenter. Yeah, circumcenter is equidistant. So see, they didn't ask you to find the circumcenter, but if they talk about equidistant, yeah, equidistant, they're talking about the circumcenter. Another thing they can do is, we looked at this last time. There's some point A, there's some point B, right? They want something that's equidistant from them. What you do is you find this equation and then you flip it to find this equation, yeah? Any point on this perpendicular line, okay, if you only have 2 points, this has nothing to do with a triangle, but if you have 2 points, you see if it's perpendicular, this point is equidistant, this point is equidistant, and any point on this line is equidistant between A and B. So whenever they talk about equidistant, something should ring a bell. They're asking you for perpendicular, okay? Equidistant automatically means perpendicular. So in this case, we're looking at the perpendicular bisectors, which is the circumcenter where they intersect. So anyways, I'm just gonna make a rough sketch on the side here. 10, 6, that's gonna be annoying. So 2, 2 is right here. That's our point A. 10, 4, 6, 8, 10 to 6, 2, 4, 2, 4, 6, right there. That's gonna be your point B. Then finally 4, 8. So 4 is here, 6 is there. That means 4, 8 must be there. So that's our sketch to scale, okay? I don't know if it's gonna help us, but it's always good to draw this out. There you go, that's our triangle. So we need to find the circumcentre. I'll give you a hint, okay? If this guy, perpendicular bisector, is gonna be something like this. It's gonna go through the middle here, midpoint. It doesn't go through the vertex on the other end. We're trying to find the point of intersection between 3 different lines, okay? This, this, and this, something like that. It's going to be the perpendicular bisector. Turns out, if you just find, this is a pro tip, if you just find 2 lines and set them equals to each other, you're going to get the answer. You don't have to find the 3rd line, okay? Because the 3rd line must go through that point as well, because all of them intersect. So we're just looking at 2 lines. Step 1, let's find the midpoint between 2, 2 and 10, 6, because perpendicular bisector goes to the midpoint. What's the midpoint here? 6 and 4, okay? Next, we need to find this equation of this line. Remember, perpendicular bisector means it's perpendicular. Let's call this point M. Let's call this point A. We already have A, so let's use something else, D. Okay, what's our strategy? We're trying to find the equation of the line MD. We already have M, right? What's our strat here? Equation of the line MD. Here, this is going to be our strat. Step 1, find the slope of A to B. Okay? Step 2, flip it, because this will give you the slope of D to M, or M to D. If you flip it, it'll give you the slope of M to D. Next, we're trying to find the equation of MD. To find an equation, you need 2 different things. You need the slope, which we will have at this point, and then you need a point on that line, which we have right here, okay? 6, 4. So that is our strategy. So step 1, let's find the slope of A to B. We're just gonna speed past this. Rise is 4, run is 8, it's 1/2. What does that mean about the slope of M to D?
It's -2/1.
Yeah, it's -2/1, it's -2. We already have a point, so we can find this really quickly. 2x plus b. Okay, we're trying to find the equation of MD. It's gonna be 4 is gonna be your y value. Your x value is gonna be 6 plus b. 12 plus 4, it's 16. Okay? So that is our first equation, -2x plus 16. We just need one more, and we're gonna set them equal to each other. Next, let's find which numbers are nice. They're all even numbers, so it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna go from 2, 2 to this way. Not 2, 2, but this to that way. What's the midpoint between C and B? C and B, what's the midpoint? It is 7, 7, yeah? How do you find the midpoint between 2 points? Look at this. We're trying to find the midpoint between C to B. You just add up the x1, x2, divide that by 2. You add up the y's, divide that by 2. Midpoint just means the average. So if you do this, you're going to get 4 plus 10/2 for the first one, 8 plus 6 divided by 2 for the second one. Plug that. 14/2 is 7. 14/2 is 7. Therefore, the midpoint between C and B is 7, 7. Make sense? Next, we need to find the equation of this line. We're gonna go from 7, 7 to some point down here. We can call that point E, okay? That's our goal. We need to find the equation of, we can call that F, I guess. We're trying to find the equation of line EF. What's the strategy to find EF? Remember, this is perpendicular, yeah? This will be perpendicular. Whenever you see perpendicular, you should probably find a slope and flip it. Look at this. To find the equation between E to F, first we're going to find the slope between C to B. It'll be -2 on the y and 6 on the x, so that's -1/3. That's the slope from C to B. That means the slope from E to F is going to be what?
3.
3, right? There we go, 3. To find that equation, E to F, you need the slope, which we have, and you need a point, which we have as well, 7, 7. So using this information, we can find the equation. So slope was 3, y equals 3x plus b. Let's plug 7, 7 in there. So it'll be 21 plus b. B will be -14, okay? So that's our other equation of EF, 3x minus 14. And that's it. You have the perpendicular bisector here. You have the perpendicular bisector here. Equations, you just set them equals to each other. It'll give you the point, which we'll double check in a bit. It'll give you the point which is equidistant from all three lines. So we're just going to set them equal to each other. So -2x plus 16 is equals to 3x minus 14. This will be 30. This will be 5x on the other side. X is going to be 6. To find the y value, just plug it in either one of them. 3 times 6 minus 14. That looks like it's going to be 4. So that point there is 6, 4. Okay. That is our circumcenter, 6, 4. How did we find this? We found this by plotting y1 equals y2, or finding the point of intersection between this line and this line. You could also find the point of intersection between the third line here, but it's going to be the same. Now next, let's check if this is true, okay? This is our circumcenter. Remember, what's the property of a circumcenter? It's equidistant from all three vertices, okay? So that means the distance from C to, we'll just call this O, C to O. I'm just going to use this formula. It's going to be x1 minus y1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. This is going to be 2 squared plus 4 squared, which is square root 20. That's the distance going from C to that point. Now let's go from E to that point. You'll see that they're all going to be the same. 2 minus 6 is 4 squared, or -4 squared, and 2 minus 4 is -2 squared. This is also going to be square root of 20. Similarly, if you go from here to here, notice on the x it's going to be 4 squared, the difference. On the y it's going to be 2 squared, the difference. See, all 3 points there, all 3 vertices of the triangle are going to be equidistant from the circumcenter. Make sense? So this is a very important tool that's used a lot in real life as well, circumcenter, because we want things to be equidistant from everything. Next, let's talk about center of mass. When it's talking about center of mass, okay, it's where the medians intersect. So this is another thing that you should know. Center of mass means it's asking you for the centroid, okay, which is basically the center of the triangle. And what gives you this? The median. Median is something that goes from a vertex that cuts it in half. Doesn't have to be 90 degrees. It has to go from the vertex and has to cut it exactly in half. All right, this one we're just gonna save some time. Let's say this is 12, 4. Let's say this is 2, 8. And let's say this is 8, 12. Rough sketch, doesn't matter. We'll call this A, we'll call this B, we'll call this C. We'll call this midpoint D. We only need 2, like we did in the previous question. You could do more, but you only need 2. Cuts it in half exactly. Cuts it in half exactly. What is point D? Remember, it's the midpoint between C and B. Tell me the coordinates of point D.
Is it 10 and 8?
Yeah. What's E? Again, you know how to do this. It's going to be 5, 10, okay? It's just the midpoint between 2 points. So this is simple. Actually, I think the centroid is the easiest because it's so easy to find the equation of these 2 lines because you have all the points that you want. There's no need to flippity flip, right? Because this has nothing to do with being perpendicular. So finding slopes is not going to help you. We're just going to find the equation of this line AD, okay? Which is going to be rise is 0. So the slope is 0 from here to here, right? Not the best sketch, but rise is 0. The run is 8. That means the slope is 0. Yeah. So this is what it actually looks like. It's a horizontal line that goes from 2, 8 to 10, 8. What's the equation of this line? The slope is 0. Remember, if the line is horizontal, it's going to be in the form of y equals to the y value. Slope is going to be 0, y equals 8. Okay? For horizontal lines, the equation of the line is going to be in terms of y equals to whatever the constant y value is. Similarly, if you ever get something like this where the x values are constant, right, like that, what do you think the equation of this line is? Now the x values are constant.
X equals 2.
Yeah, remember that vertical line, it's going to be in the form of x equals, horizontal line, it's going to be in the form of y equals. So therefore, this first equation is y equals 8. That's the first median equation. Next, I'm going to find this. So your slope is going to be -6, your run is 7. We're going to plug this in this equation to find the b value. You can use any one here. 4 is equals to -6/7 times 12 plus b. So it'll be 4 plus 6 times 12 divided by 7. So that is 100/7 is your b value. So that's the equation of this line here, okay? We know that line is this, and we know this line is this. How do you find the point of intersection between 2 lines?
You set them equal to each other?
You set them equal. Look at this. Now here, we don't really have anything x. This 8, y equals 8, is going to be equals to y equals this. Therefore, this is going to be 8, because we don't really have an x component on the left, like that, okay? So it's going to be 8 minus 100 divided by 7, divided by -6 divided by 7. That gives me the x value is 22/3. Okay, x value is 22/3. This one you can kind of cheat because the y value must be 8. Because the y value of that line is constant, yeah? So if it meets it here, doesn't matter where, the y value is 8, y value here is 8, 8, 8. So the y value there also must be 8. So there you go. That is the center of mass. Okay, the centroid where the medians intersect. So we're given 4 points. Okay, doesn't matter. So what are our lines? So A, B, and C, okay? We need these 3 points to be connected to the gas line. All right, what do you think they're asking us in this question? They're asking you for the distance from here to here, okay? Connected to the gas line, the distance from here to here, the distance from here to here, the distance from here to here. That's it, because the lines need to be connected to the houses. The houses don't need to be connected. Use the distance formula in part A to find that answer, okay? But I think more importantly, part B is the more important one here. It says determine the best location to illuminate the 3 homes equally. What do you think they're asking you? Look at the word equally, yeah? So let's draw our triangle. It's gonna look like this, right? We're looking for a point here for the lamp, whatever this is. That equally means what? It's equidistant, yeah? From all 3 points. So what is that thing called? Something that's equidistant. That is the circumcenter, exactly. That's where the perpendicular bisectors connect, okay? Perpendicular bisectors. You just need 2 of them here. We can do this really quickly. You need the midpoint from A to B, which is going to be -16 plus 22 divided by 2. That's 6 over 2. That's A3. On the y, it's going to be 8 over 2. That's A4. So this point here, wherever they connect, is the midpoint of A to B is 3, 4. Now we need this to be perpendicular going this way, right? Like that. That's our midpoint. We need to find the equation of this line. What you do is you find the slope between A to B, okay? Which is annoying, which is going to be 6 here, 56 negative on this, and on the x, it's going to be 38. That's their slope. You flip this, that'll give you the slope of whatever this is. C something, CH, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be the opposite of that. So we know the slope of this line. We know a point on that line, right? Using that information, we can find what the b value is. So x here is 3, the y here is 4. This will give you the b value. So it's going to be 38 times 3 divided by 56, 4 minus that. It's going to be 55 over 28. Therefore, the equation of that line is 38 over 56x plus 55 over 28. That's our first equation. Using the exact same method, yeah, you can either find the midpoint here, find the slope there, flip it, that'll give you your y2, set them equal to each other, and that will give you the circumcenter. And the circumcenter is where it's equidistant from all 3 points on the vertex. Okay? All right, let's call it a day there.
Okay, thank you.
See ya.